On January 2nd, Pinnacle in record time completed its merger with Synovus. Now, although it's going to be approximately a year before you see the offices branded with the Pinnacle sign, our leadership team is in place of the combined company, and the president and CEO, Kevin Blair, is with us today. So I couldn't miss this opportunity for Kevin to spend a few minutes with you. So at this time, please welcome Kevin Blair.
If nothing else, I got the color right on the tie, okay? I may have been in Knoxville last week and I was inappropriately dressed with a blue tie, and I don't think Peyton was gonna come to Chattanooga today unless I wore orange tie. It may be the wrong color, so you guys can help me with the right Tennessee orange. But Craig, thank you for having me here. If you are a client of Pinnacle, I appreciate your business, and if you're a prospect of Pinnacle, we'd love to earn your business and earn your trust. As Craig said, when we decided to go through with this merger, we started having discussions with Rob McCabe and Terry Turner and the broader Pinnacle leadership team early in the spring of '25. And one of the things that we talked about in the world that we live in today, you guys see it, you wake up every morning and see that companies are merging, getting larger, technology is becoming a bigger part of every industry. Just look at the AI business that's driving the equity markets today. We recognize that we also had to get bigger. We had to get bigger to compete on the technology front, the capability front, and to ensure that you as clients of the bank are able to meet your financial goals the most efficiently way you can. But what we also said is we've seen other industries, other deals where people have gotten together and merged, and they haven't been able to deliver on that client experience that they were built upon. And so when Terry, Rob, and I talked about what we were trying to create, we were trying to create a bank that has scale but has a soul. And that's so important to me, and I want you guys to hear that as Craig said, the signs will change on the Synovus locations in 2027. You'll see some changes in technology and maybe some minor adjustments to capabilities. But what I hope you'll find is that the people that serve you and your companies and you individually, they're not changing. The reason that you love Pinnacle Bank, that's not going to change. And I hope what you'll actually find is that this scale, getting a little larger, we will become the 19th largest commercial bank in the United States, that scale will allow us to better serve your needs and ultimately will better position us to continue to grow and expand. We're now going to be in 9 states in the District of Columbia, so as you guys travel throughout the Southeast, you'll be able to see the Pinnacle brand through all of those markets. But look, I just want to say thank you for having me here today. It's truly an honor to be able to take the baton in this next leg of this journey and help lead this company to being the best, and I mean this, the best place to work in the United States and the best financial services firm also in the United States. That's our goal. And to do that, that means we have to have the best team members, which I think we have here in Chattanooga. What an amazing market. And we have to have the best clients. And I think we have that here as well. And Craig did lie to me and say that there were 900 people coming to see me today. I think I know why you're here. It's not me. So without further ado, thank you for having me. I'll turn it over to Larry to get our program started.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, Kevin. We appreciate you joining us here today. Again, my name is Larry Vineyard. Welcome to all of y'all. I am a financial advisor with Pinnacle Financial here in Chattanooga, helping serve our small businesses. At Pinnacle, we pride ourselves on delivering distinctive service with expert advice, all wrapped up in a truly local operating model. And so as part of what we do, we do these forums each year to help bring everyone together and bring you insight, leadership, and meaningful conversation. And we're really glad all of y'all can join us here. It's a full room, so you guys really showed out. So first, I'd like to go ahead and welcome a figure in Southeastern sports media and our special guest moderator today, David Pascal. Many of you in Chattanooga know David for his long-standing roles as he is as a writer for the Chattanooga Times Free Press and also as a familiar co-host with Sports Talk on WGOW He is also nationally recognized and contributes with his insights as an Associated Poll Press voter. And he is also a respected Heisman Trophy voter. Although, so everybody knows, he made sure to let us know that he has only held that since 2003. He was not around since in 1997, so he wanted to make sure everybody knew that before he got up here on stage. And with that, I want to go ahead and introduce our special guest for today. On the field, he built a legacy as one of the NFL's greatest of all time, amassing 2 Super Bowls, an unprecedented 5 MVP awards, and then also went into the Hall of Fame as a first-time ballot in 2021. But what makes him really relevant to today's room is his extraordinary work off the field. It's how he accomplished it all. He is relevant in the fact that he has built a signature business with a blend of humility, and also we all know his humor. He has translated his preparation, his discipline, and leadership to the business world, founding Omaha Productions. It's a successful internet company that produces both digital content, branded content, and podcast, all with a mission to both unify and uplift. And in addition to that, he's simultaneously done all of this while making a profound impact in his communities through dedicated organizations such as his Payback Foundation, as well as his Peyton Manning Children's Hospital. Please give a warm Chattanooga welcome to Mr. Peyton Manning.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it. All right, David. Thank y'all.
Thank y'all very much. I personally, before we get going, I need to thank Peyton for making the effort to be here and to witness the most thorough round of applause I've ever received. So thank you for that. Peyton's one of those that I'm this close to forgiving him for beating my alma mater in the 1997 SEC championship game. Craig Hawley can tell you that it takes us Auburn alums a long time to get over tough losses. There's like a 30-year window, so we finally have to, I believe, let it go. So,
thank you.
But no, thank you for a wonderful crowd here. Obviously, thank Peyton for being here, and let's have a lot of fun in this hour. All right, we are amazingly coming up on the 10-year anniversary of Peyton announcing his retirement. Peyton, while you are still very much connected to the game of football, what do you miss about playing and what do you not miss?
I don't miss getting hit anymore. I had a guy ask me the other day, he said, boy, I bet you don't miss those blindside hits when the defender actually hits you in the backside as you're getting ready to throw. And believe it or not, David, I feel like I could avoid the blindside hits, mainly because of all of you, the fans. When you're getting ready to throw, and all of a sudden you hear 80,000 people go, you just scoot up a little bit because something bad's about to happen. I don't miss getting hit. I think what I miss more than anything, I think all of you can certainly relate, is simply being a part of that team. In the NFL, there's 53 players on a team. You do everything together. You practice together, you watch film together, you travel together. It's the ultimate form of bonding, camaraderie, and fellowship, and I really do miss that. That's just hard to replace in this second chapter. I miss the plane rides after a win. Nothing quite like being on an airplane with 53 of your friends after this hard-fought victory. The adrenaline, the emotion, there's nothing like it. Next time you're on that flight and that flight attendant says, this plane cannot take off. Everyone is seated and your cell phones are turned off. That is not true. Because after an NFL game, everybody's standing up, they're on their phones, they're high-fiving and hugging, and that plane takes off just fine. So I miss the plane rides is what I miss.
Now, if you've ever seen The Book of Manning, which is a documentary on the Manning family, you can see it on ESPN or SEC Network, you've seen footage of Peyton dressed up like his dad, Archie, at age 2. I mean, he is in a football uniform at age 2. Peyton, if you weren't a football player, what would you have been?
That's a good question, I guess. Obviously, I grew up around the game. My dad was my hero, my favorite quarterback. My dad, my role model, have all kind of wrapped into one. Always kind of wanted to be like him. Never realized that was going to be possible, up until I started kind of getting recruited in high school, and then I got to Tennessee, realized I might have a chance to go to the NFL. So it's been such an important part of my life. It's allowed me to meet so many people because of the relationships that I've made by playing college football in Tennessee, and then with the Colts and the Broncos. So I don't know. I was a communications major, probably doing what you do right now.
And making just tons. All right, talk about the influence your family has had on you, specifically your dad, and along those lines, what's the biggest lesson you learned that you are passing on to your kids and will continue to pass on to your children?
Yeah, my dad, like I said, he and my mother, they were just both very present in our lives. My dad, I know for a fact, David, he said no to some things. When he retired from the NFL, I was 8 years old. He said no to some potential opportunities that would have kept him away from being a part of his kids' lives. My dad was at our Little League baseball games. He was at our youth basketball games. I could see my dad in the stands, and that was important to me, that he was there. And so, listen, I'm busy and I'm stimulated, and I like my kids seeing me, go to work. I do way too many commercials. I apologize. Got a few more coming out this month, I'm going to warn you. But I take my kids to school every day, and I go to my daughter's volleyball tournaments, and I help, coach some of my son's youth sports teams. And so my dad was just a great model from that standpoint, being a part of their lives. He always told us he was proud of us. He loved us after a game, whether we won or lost. He never pushed us into playing sports, and I think that's important. He encouraged us to play because of the valuable lessons that sports teaches, taking coaching, overcoming adversity, working with different types of teammates. He never pushed us and never pressured us. I think that's a healthy approach. Really good documentary, like you said, kind of telling his story. He lost his father when he was in college, had a huge impact on his parenting philosophy. It was a really well done documentary. I personally think it showed a few too many crying videos of me as a 3-year-old. At what point do you think you'd stop filming your 3-year-old son getting kicked in the head by his older brother and maybe go out there and help the poor kid? No, I got to keep filming. This might be a documentary one day. Besides that, he's been a great dad.
You mentioned that about the commercial several weeks ago. My dad's 90 years old, lives in Charlotte, and I said I'd been asked to moderate an event with Peyton Manning, and he said, he seems like a really nice guy, and he's in a lot of commercials. Tell us about the relationship with your brothers, Cooper and Eli. Obviously, some of that is documented in the Book of Manning. What was that like growing up together, and really kind of how has that transformed through the years?
Yeah, I was middle child, lucky to have older brother Cooper, who's 2 years older than me. Eli's 5 years younger than me. Cooper taught me a lot, beat up on me a little bit. I felt I had to do those same things down to Eli. We were big kids growing up. Cooper was 12 pounds, 3 ounces at birth. I was 12'1". Eli was only 10 pounds. We thought something was wrong with him. And my parents always told us, if you ever want to disappoint us as parents, don't get along with your brothers. That'd be one way to really let us down. So we've always remembered that. Not saying we didn't argue or not get along at times like all siblings do, but we always had each other's backs as kids and still do today. Cooper and I got to play together 1 year in high school. He was a senior wide receiver. I was a sophomore quarterback on the high school team. I completed 120 passes that year. I threw 90 of them to my brother. And still probably the most enjoyable year I've ever had playing football, because he and I got to, play in the backyard all those years. We got to go down on the Superdome turf after Saints games, and to finally kind of, have one real football season together. We had our own signals. That was a really enjoyable year. He goes to Ole Miss on a football scholarship, has a neck injury, has to give up his football career. The grace and attitude with which he handled that adversity just had a huge impact on me when I went through my injuries in my career. He just had an incredible faith, a great positive attitude, and he's been successful in business, raised a great family, couldn't play football at Ole Miss, became a social legend at Ole Miss, if that makes sense to anybody in this room. This table gets it. And so he just had a huge impact on me. He kind of wrote me a letter saying, Peyton, I want to live my dream of playing football through you. So I've always kind of carried that with me throughout my career. Eli, 5 years younger, never played on the same team. Eli was always getting dragged to my sporting events by my parents. Eli and I, our relationship really got closer when I got to Tennessee and Eli was playing high school quarterback in New Orleans. I'd go back and share the things that I had learned from my coaches. And then he goes to Ole Miss, and I'm with the Colts same thing. I'd go back and share with things that I learned. And so our relationship really grew then. It was nice having a sibling in the same business, right? When we were with the Colts and the Giants, we would share game plan notes versus common opponents. We'd work out together, and you can't do that with any other NFL quarterback. So just been super proud with how he handled himself on the field, in the community, in New York and Mississippi. I played against him 3 times, always in the regular season. You know, people say, well, wouldn't it have been great to have played against him in a Super Bowl? And trust me, it wouldn't have, because now your parents are going to have to kind of decide. They would have gone for Eli. I get that. He's the baby in the family. But I was kind of glad it was in the regular season all 3 times. And it puts you in a tough spot because you want to win for your team. But I was such a strong defender of Eli, and you want the best for him. I will say all 3 times, coincidentally, for the national anthem, he and I were lined up right across from each other on the same yard line. And you kind of take a moment and you go, this is pretty cool. That's my little brother. We're playing in front of 80,000 people here singing the national anthem. This is kind of a cool moment. And our team ended up winning all 3 times as well. So real proud of him.
All right, you've talked about your dad, you've talked about your brothers. What about role models, mentors, especially coaches along the way? How important have they been?
Yeah, besides my family, coaches have had the greatest impact on me. Luckily, I got to get coached for a really long time, up until my last year in the NFL when I was, about to turn 40. Tony Dungy, who I played for in Indianapolis, every bit as good a human being as he was a coach. He treated you so well. He treated you like such a professional that you just didn't want to let him down, and you played harder for him. You wanted to make that great throw or great catch for him because you didn't want to disappoint your leader. He never raised his voice, never used any type of language. He was just as calm, David, in the 4th quarter of a Super Bowl as he was out there at practice every day. And I would argue when your leader is calm, it's easy for the people following that leader to be calm as well. He was always talking about expectations, execution, no excuses, no explanations. Take care of the little things, the big things will take care of themselves. So I find myself quoting Tony Dungy in my everyday life. Very effective but unique style of leadership. My coach in college up in Tennessee, Philip Fulmer, was a loyal coach. He always had your back, especially if times get tough. That's a great quality, I think, in a leader, to have the backs of the people following you, especially if times get tough. And then on a lighter note, I played for a real character, my high school coach down in New Orleans. He's 90 years old now. We still stay in touch. I never had a bad game in my high school coach's eyes, David. One time I went 8 for 33 with 3 interceptions, and he came out in the paper, he said, yeah, but we had 22 drop passes last night. That's the kind of guy you want to work for right there. He was famous for these malaprops that I call them, Yogi Berra type expressions. He would always tell us for the team picture to line up alphabetically by height. Smart kids at our school were trying to figure that one out. He would tell all his right-handed quarterbacks, he'd say, Peyton, when you're rolling out to the left now, it'd be a heck of a lot easier if you could throw the ball left-handed if you were amphibious. I think you've been ambidextrous. I never asked them. And then the last one, recruiting has changed. David and I were talking about recruiting. It's changed so much now. But back when I got recruited, colleges sent you the written questionnaire. So I'm 17 years old, sitting in my high school coach's office, filling out one of these questionnaires. I said, Coach, it's got some questions about you. He said, what's it say? I said, it's asking for the name of my high school, name of my high school coach, and what is my high school coach's alma mater? I said, Coach, I've never even asked you before. What is your alma mater? He said, always do your best. Which is good advice, by the way. The last serious note I'll share about coaching, and I hope this kind of relates to everybody in this room, that I believe we all have an obligation to mentor and to pay it forward. Anytime if there's a younger person in your field, share your knowledge. Don't keep it all to yourself. Help the next generation of workforce grow. Anytime I had a young quarterback when I was playing on my team, on another team, a college kid, we have a football camp now for high school and college kids. Anytime a quarterback asked me a question, I was always willing to answer it. I was always going to share it because I had people do that to me, my dad and Troy Aikman and Dan Marino. We should all pay it forward. At no point, though, should we stop being coached ourselves. And that it literally is a mentor, it's a coach, it's a boss, it's a coworker, it's a relative, someone that is candid with you and honest with you, don't ever stop going back to that person, because we need to hear the truth. We all hit a plateau at some point in our performance, no matter what level of success anyone reaches. And for me, and really for Eli, it was the same guy. My offensive coordinator at Tennessee was David Cutcliffe. He coached Eli at Ole Miss. He became the head coach at Duke. Wherever he was, every NFL offseason, I would go back and get coached by Coach Cutcliffe. And he would coach me like I was a freshman in college again. He'd yell at me, and we would work on the most basic fundamentals of how to play quarterback. How do you take a snap? How do you call a play in the huddle? And I guess you might ask, well, why would a 17-year NFL veteran need to go back and learn how to take a snap again? The point is, whatever it is that you're doing, the little things matter. And when you stop doing those little things, that's usually when your performance begins to slide. So I'd encourage you all to keep being coached.
All right, I'm a little bit older than Peyton. I got to the Chattanooga paper in 1990. And of course, back in those days, there was not X or Twitter. There were no phones to keep up with the news. And so when there was a big sporting happening, they would call, the phones would start ringing at the Free Press, now the Times Free Press. And the 3 busiest days that I ever experienced as far as the phone ringing off the hook was the day Heath Shuler committed to Tennessee, the day Peyton Manning committed to Tennessee, and the day Peyton Manning announced he was returning for his senior year. And that's the one I'll never forget, because the phone would ring, we'd pick it up, and we'd say, sports department, and it was just one after the other. And has Peyton made a decision? And we'd say, yes, he's coming back. And as soon as we said back, we would have to hold the phone out like that because of all the screaming of how excited everybody was that Peyton was coming back for his senior year. Peyton, take us back to that time. Why did you decide to play 4 years of college, and just walk us through that decision?
Yeah, it was a tough decision, certainly, that choosing where to go and choosing whether to stay, and then choosing which team to go for after the Colts. Colts and I parted ways. Those are the toughest kind of professional decisions I ever had to make. And I even to this day, I'm still an old yellow notepad kind of person. I write out those pluses and minuses. I think it's the best way to make a decision. Oftentimes that answer is kind of staring at you right in the face. Eventually you're going to have to, pray about it and kind of trust your instincts. I think you ought to call as many people as you can asking for advice. And so that was kind of the policy that I went through during that decision. I called a lot of senior quarterbacks that stayed for their senior years, some juniors that left, and you got kind of a variety of answers. I guess I didn't want to I turned 50 next month, believe it or not, and I didn't want to be my age and kind of wondering what my senior year in college would have been like. And also my first 3 years in college, David, I felt like I was constantly just rushing. I was running to class, running to practice, running to do an interview. I took lots of hours every single semester in the summer as well, in case I were to leave early. I actually graduated in 3 years because of all of the summer school hours that I took. And I came to college for 2 reasons: to get the best education that I could get and to be the best football player I could be. And so I have my degree. Probably would have been, the first or second pick as a junior, but I just didn't want to have any regrets. And my rookie year with the Colts was tough. I was the first pick in the NFL draft, and trust me, that's a real honor. But when you're the first pick in the NFL draft, you're going to a team that has earned the first pick in the NFL draft. There's a reason they have that pick. And we win 3 games. I lost more games my rookie year than I did my entire high school and college career combined. I threw 28 interceptions, which was an NFL record that I still hold today. You would think with 17 games now, they're going to 18, seeing that one of these rookies would break that record. But now what happens is the rookie struggles early, the coach takes him out. I go, no, leave him in there. Let him learn. So I'm over it for the most part. But I'll say this, we went 3-13, 28 interceptions. My second year in the NFL, we went from 3-13 to 13-3. And I think that wouldn't have happened had I not stayed 4 years in college. I got mentally tougher, I got physically stronger, I just felt more experienced coming into the NFL. I made some relationships with my teammates and teachers and support staff and folks throughout Tennessee that I cherish those relationships today. So without a doubt, one of the best decisions I ever made was staying all 4 years in college.
You've always been known as a student of the game, which I guess is better than being labeled a game manager. That
Right.
seems to offend some people.
Right.
But no, you were a student of the game. What did those 4 years at Tennessee teach you, both as a quarterback and leadership?
Yeah, obviously, look, being a quarterback kind of naturally sort of puts you in a leadership role. It doesn't make you a leader automatically. I think you have to earn the mantle of leadership. But to start 4 seasons in that incredible stadium up there, and to face some adversity and overcome it, and to get to know so many people throughout the state of Tennessee, from Knoxville all the way to Memphis. It was, I didn't know anybody when I went to Tennessee. My grandmother was actually born in Humboldt, Tennessee, on my dad's side, and my dad's backup quarterback was Bobby Scott. That was my only connections to Tennessee. My entire family, went to Ole Miss, and so it was kind of a surprising decision to a lot of people, friends of my family, but it was just the best decision that I made because of the people that I met throughout Tennessee, and such an important part of my life that I couldn't have imagined going anywhere else.
You've always been a supporter of the university and its athletic programs. If you go back 7 or 8 years, they were struggling in a lot. Now, across the board, they seem to be doing really, really well. What is that like experiencing?
It's been awesome to witness and to be a part of. I was in Knoxville Monday, had lunch with Coach Heupel, and stay in touch really with all of our coaches. Had a close relationship with Coach Vitello, but Coach Barnes, and it's just fun. Obviously, when all of our sporting teams are doing well, it's obviously helped our school. Our enrollment's at an all-time high. We have incredible leadership with Randy and Dondi. So, very proud to be an alum, and it's been really fun to see kind of the transformation of the school, especially in these last 7, 8 years.
Favorite moments as a Vol player, and just how involved you are even today.
Yeah, I teach a class there. It's an easy A, by the way. Get your kid to sign up, get that GPA. But actually, I was going up to Knoxville Monday to teach my class. I do it a couple of times a semester. It's not a full-time gig, but the classes got canceled because of the snow to online. So I actually did a Zoom with all the students. But so I enjoyed that. I went to probably 3 games this year, and I take very strongly that role of kind of being an ambassador and supporter of all things. Had a scholarship that Ashley and I have donated to for since I left there, and real involved with the College of Communications. Boy, it's so hard to pick one. I mean, every Saturday playing in that stadium, there's just nothing like it. I mean, my first game in the NFL, the Colts played the Dolphins, and had a guy next to me from Western Kentucky, and the RCA Dome back then held 60,000 people, and he's standing by me, and he goes, "Look at all. This is unbelievable how big this crowd is." I said, "This is about half of what I played in college every Saturday." And so it's just hard to describe. And so every Saturday, that walk to the stadium. There's so many things that college has that the NFL doesn't have. There's no pregame, walk to the stadium. There's no band in pro football. Cheerleaders and the band don't travel to a road game in the NFL. So I loved all those things about the college football experience. That's probably why I might have stayed all 4 years. Well, I didn't want to miss out on another year of that.
Decision making is obviously.
I will say one.
Yeah.
I got to lead the band after a game, and that's something you only get to do in college. And I really thought that I kind of had the band. So we were doing Rocky Top. I kind of thought I had them in cue, and was really doing it well. And I looked down, and the real band conductor was right below me doing it the whole time. So it's kind of a humbling moment. So.
When you think of decision making, it's obviously important in everyday business life, and you were very famous for your ability to call audibles. When you think about audibles, the ability to call an audible, whether that's in a game or in a business deal, Peyton, is that something that's purely instinctive, or how do you develop that talent?
It's a great question. An audible in football is when the quarterback walks up there to the line of scrimmage, sees how the defense is aligned, and then changes the play to get out of a bad situation, sometimes to try to get to maybe a perfect situation. Every time we called an audible, we yelled out the word Omaha and then snapped the ball. That's what an audible is in football. And I think whether it's on a football field or in business, I do think guts, instinct, and courage are part of making a change, calling an audible. But I really think it would boil down to what I would just call dogged preparation, having a plan for what might be coming down the road, and when that situation comes about, you go to that plan. When you watch the Super Bowl on Sunday and you see Sam Darnold call an audible, it looks like he's kind of winging it, like it's spontaneous. He's calling out these words and giving hand signals. It looks like he's kind of winging it. I can promise you that every audible that Sam Darnold calls on Sunday, he has talked about it with his team. I know that's how I did it. I said, guys, if the defense ever does this is what I'm going to audible to. It might be this week's game, might not be till next week, might not be till the end of the season, but this is the plan if this situation comes about. And I think that's how you have to go about it. Winging it, it's not good in football. I don't imagine it's very good in business either. And now I did call a lot of audibles that didn't work. And I'd come over the sideline, I said, maybe I should have stuck with the original plan. My coaches, my teammates always said, no, that was a good plan. We didn't execute it. Don't second guess yourselves. I think because I had the backing of my teammates and coaches, most of my audibles did work. So I think it goes back to just that communication. And look, we've been dealing with one of the great blitzes of all time these past several years with the pandemic, but it's forced all of us to audible and it's forced all of us to communicate, which is a good thing. So I think instead of waiting until something comes about and then figuring it out, let's talk about it now, what we're going to do if this situation comes about, and go to that plan. And that's kind of what drove me making all those changes throughout the years.
All right, sticking with audibles, and you touched on Omaha. What is the origin of Omaha and what that means?
Yeah, kind of an underwhelming answer, to tell you the truth. So when you audible, usually you do it with just a few seconds left on the play clock, right? Defenses, they kind of wait, they disguise their defense, and they don't show their hand until about 7 seconds on the play clock. So you got 6 seconds to audible to change the play. See, we needed a buzzword, we needed an indicator word that meant we're going from plan A to plan B, and this ball is about to be snapped now. So it was Omaha, snap the ball, to tell my linemen, my receivers, okay, he's going to that other play, now I know what to do, and we're going now. And there was no real rhyme or reason. It needed to be 3 syllables. Maybe we should have used Pinnacle. Pinnacle. Good viral marketing there. We needed a 3-syllable word, a rhythmic word. And the reason you can even hear what's being said on an NFL field now is about 13 years ago when I signed with the Broncos, the NFL turned the microphones on the field up louder, started miking offensive linemen. So the television viewers at home could hear everything going on the field. And it was great for the viewers at home. It wasn't so great for the quarterbacks because we found out that defenses we were getting ready to play the next week were actually watching the television copy of the game from the week before.
Wow.
Not just the game film, which is no noise. They were watching the television copy and picking up on all of our offensive verbiage and terminology that we have worked so hard to protect. And now we're just broadcasting it out to all of our competition, right? I mean, look, there's a reason these guys are playing defense, right? There's no geniuses on defense, right? But I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. If Ray Lewis walks out, let me know. But we did feel like it was an advantage because and so I would go to the Jim Nances and the Chris Collinsworths and I'd say, hey, can we turn those microphones down? And they wouldn't do it because they liked the access. And my one regret all the years in playing, instead of saying Omaha, was get up there under center and go, blue 20, Jim Nance is a no good, you know what, son of a mother, I think they would have turned those microphones down. But that's why you can hear, we picked Omaha. Last thing I'll say, I am a really big deal in Omaha, Nebraska now. I went there a couple years ago. I got the key to the city, got some steaks out of the deal. So now I even started a business called Omaha. So.
You always had a reputation for being one of the best prepared quarterbacks in the league. How did you develop that discipline, and really how did you keep it fresh over a long career, and how has that discipline helped you in other aspects of your life?
Yeah, I think my dad was always giving me quotes as a kid, and there was a great quote he gave me when I was a freshman in high school from the legendary Pittsburgh Steelers head coach Chuck Noll, who once said, "Pressure is what you feel only when you don't know what you're doing." And that just applied to me at the time in school. It applies to sports. It applies to business and life. Did I get nervous before a game? You bet. I think it's good to get nervous before a big opportunity. That means you care about the outcome. It means it's important to you. That's a good thing. Anxious, excited, you bet. I can't wait for that opportunity to get here. Pressure, that's a different feeling. That means you probably haven't prepared as hard as you need to for whatever that is. And I left the field a lot saying, I wish I could have this play over again. I never left the field saying, I wish I could have done more to get ready for that game. I think that's really all we can ask of ourselves. So, look, we're all trying to get an edge on the competition somehow. Preparation was where I felt I could get an edge. I couldn't throw it as far as, Mahomes and Josh Allen can probably throw it as far as they want to. They're literally that good. If you remember watching me play, you certainly know that I couldn't outrun anybody. I had a coach tell me once that I couldn't run out of sight in a week. That was nice. But I thought I could out-prepare them, and that's just kind of where that drove me and gave me confidence on Saturdays or Sunday that nobody's watched more film, nobody spent more time with their receivers going over the game plan, and that gave me confidence on those days of playing. So I'm a big believer in preparation, and in this second chapter, look, it still serves me well. I'm into some things that are kind of outside of my comfort zone in sports, and I've tried to surround myself with people that are smarter than me. I ask lots of questions. I think people think asking questions is a sign of weakness. I think questions, that's how you figure things out. That's how you wrench open windows. I think it's actually a strength. So, I'm still learning. I think preparation is always going to serve you well.
I like this guy. I make my life asking questions. Let's go back to technology for a second. I mean, you were touching on that, but obviously a little bit different now from your days at Isidore Newman in Tennessee.
Yeah.
How has technology changed football?
Yeah, football has not been spared from the technology disruption. It's made the game better, I think. It's made it safer, which I would argue is most important. Just the ability to prepare. When Patrick Mahomes comes off the practice field, they're handing him his iPad, and that entire practice has been filmed, and it is on his iPad. He is watching it 1 minute after the practice ends, and he can go have lunch. He can go in the cold tub and ice his legs and watch the practice and make notes on a certain throw that he wants to work on. When you watch the Super Bowl on Sunday, you'll notice the quarterbacks usually, they are in between series looking at a high-definition Microsoft Surface tablet. And that is a high-definition video of the series that they just played. So they can watch and see exactly what happened and, that linebacker on the backside did blitz. Okay, I'm going to remember that. When I played, like you got a grainy black and white photo, still shot, before the snap and after the snap. You couldn't tell, is that the linebacker or the referee or the kid who forgot to get the tee after the opening kickoff? So it's made the ability to prepare better. I think most importantly, it's made it safer. Two things are significant there. All the players all week in practice wear a chip in their shoulder pads. That tells the coaches how much the players are running during practice. They can monitor that player's repetitions later in the week to get him fresh for Sunday's game. And then some teams have devices in their helmets that will tell an athletic trainer on the sideline if a player has suffered a big hit. And we can get that player off the field and evaluate him and keep the game safer and get him out if we have to. So, like I said, it's made it better and safer.
Peyton, let's shift to leadership. When you go back to your early seasons with the Colts, how did you establish your credibility as a leader, given that there were players 10 years older than you on the roster? And then if you fast forward to your first season in Denver, how did you, now as a veteran, kind of reestablish yourself in a new locker room?
Yeah, my rookie year with the Colts was tough, as I mentioned earlier. I learned a valuable lesson in college in my very first game playing at Tennessee. We were playing up at UCLA in the Rose Bowl. And I was just kind of happy to be in the stadium that day. And our starting quarterback, Jerry Colquitt, tore his knee on the 7th play of the game. Just terrible luck. And then our backup quarterback was Todd Helton, who Todd used to keep a can of Skol in his football pants. And I think Todd kind of knew he was going to baseball and maybe hadn't studied the plays a lot that week against UCLA, let's just say. And so anyway, they put me in, and boy, I was so nervous, and all the hair on my arms was sticking straight up. But I'm jogging into the huddle, and I remember my dad had told me, he said, son, if you ever get in that huddle, you got to be the leader. You got to take control. That's your job as a quarterback. You're 18 years old. These seniors are 21, 22. Be the leader and take control of that huddle. So I remembered his advice. I get in that huddle. I said, all right, guys, I know I'm just a freshman, but I could take us down the field, get us a touchdown, get us back in this game. Let's go. Big left tackle, Jason Lehman, 6'5", 330 pounds from Sevier County, grabs me by the shoulder and says, hey, freshman, shut the blank up and call the blank and play. He didn't say blank either. And I said, yes, sir. And I didn't say another word in that huddle the rest of the season. Great advice from my dad. I really appreciated that. embarrassing moment, but what a valuable lesson it taught me. You know, these new leaders, these new coworkers of mine, these new teammates, they didn't want to hear what I had to say. I had not earned their respect by any means to go in there and be some vocal leader. But I tried to be the first one out there to practice, the last one to leave, kind of the rest of the season. Took responsibility for my play, mistakes in my interviews, in team meetings. I think slowly toward the end of that year, kind of earned their respect to be a little more of a vocal leader. And so that's kind of what I applied when I got to the Colts. I called it silent leadership. And like you said, now you're 22. Now you got 37, 38-year-old grown adults in that huddle looking at you, see how you're handling this adversity. Are you blaming others? Or are you taking responsibility? And I felt like I wanted to earn the respect of those guys. Say, hey, I'm here to help the Colts start winning football games. And now when I get to Denver, even though I'd played for 14 years, once again, not with these new Denver Bronco teammates. I went in there very quiet and humble. Just, hey, I'm here to help the Broncos start winning again. And then in September of that year, before our first game, in the NFL, the players vote on the captains. It's not a coach's pick, it's a player vote. And they voted me a captain, which told me maybe they want me to be a little more vocal. And so look, leadership, when you break it down to its core essentials, is the ability to influence others. If you can't influence a team, it's awfully hard to lead that team. And just because you're the quarterback, manager, CEO, president doesn't make you a leader automatically. You have to earn that mantle of leadership. And I think to earn that mantle, you got to earn the trust and respect of the people that you're trying to lead.
Did your approach to leadership, did that change whether you were winning or losing?
Yeah, I think both of them are extremely challenging. When you're winning and business is good, what are you going to do to, keep your foot on the gas and avoid your whole team getting complacent? You should celebrate success. You throw a touchdown, you have a great quarter, you have a great year. We should go down in the end zone and celebrate that. But then we need to get over the sidelines, figure out how to go out there and do it again. And I think, oftentimes when I was playing for the Colts, we'd have games where we'd won 6, 7 games in a row. We're playing a team that maybe has one win, and the media is saying this is going to be an easy game. What are you going to do to keep your team from being complacent? Because you're going to get everybody else's best effort, right? The competition is coming for you. What are you going to do to stay ahead? Every NFL locker room has a bulletin board. And what do you put on there? Bulletin board material. That's when the other team says something bad about you that they put on that bulletin board to use to motivate you. Well, when business is good, nobody says anything bad about you. So when things were good for us, we're playing a bad team, we just made up quotes that the other team said about us, and we put it on that bulletin board, and it would work. Some of my players would believe it, and they'd go out there and play harder. So I think you got to be creative during those times to keep your edge, maybe a little bit of discomfort to keep everybody going in the right direction. Now you're losing, business is bad. What are you going to do about it? There's a reason for it. We felt like when we got in a bad situation, we got away from our core values and fundamentals. We simplified during that time. But also when you go through a tough time as a team or a company, having the right kind of people on your team is critical. And the talent acquisition process in your world, no different than the NFL, it is critical. It is not about hiring the most talented person if he or she doesn't fit into your corporate culture or locker room. Tony Dungy, who I mentioned earlier, he'd rather have a player that ran a slower 40-yard dash that was a high character person, because those are the people you got to count on if times get tough. People used to ask me, well, how would Tony Dungy have handled this player? Maybe a player that causes distractions and is selfish. I go, that player is never getting on Tony Dungy's team in the first place. And that's how you build a winning culture. And when you go through tough times, those are the people you want on your team because they look at themselves in the mirror. What can I do to help us get out of this jam? They don't blame others. They look at themselves. And when you come out of those tough spots, it's extremely rewarding because you've kind of done it together as a team.
I can't ask a more simple, clear-cut question than this, but when you reach the NFL, you've reached the ultimate level. At that level, what separates the good ones from the great ones?
I don't think it's just the NFL. I think it's any field or any business. I think there's certain qualities maybe it can separate you a little bit. I think you got to be, have some ability, be good at what you do. None of you would be in this room if you weren't good at what you do. You got to combine that with a good work ethic. You hear about that in sports all the time. Talented player didn't work very hard, won't last very long. You got to have a passion for your job. I think you got to love it. If you don't love it, somebody who loves it more is probably going to pass you by. Eli and I used to always joke we would never tell the owners of the Colts or Giants or Broncos this, but we would have played for free. But you kind of keep that to yourself. But I think that was kind of always one of our criteria in drafting a player. Does this player love football? Would he play for free? Not that you'd ever have to, but does he love it that much? And then a fourth thing, I think, is just a real feeling of accountability, that there are people counting on you to do your job. Some of the great players that I've played with, that's how they thought about it. People are counting on me, I got to do my part. And so I think when you have accountability, passion, work ethic, ability, you can separate yourself maybe from the rest of the pack.
All right, you were very fortunate to be healthy for the overwhelming majority of your career, but you did have the neck situation. And when you returned after your surgery, and that would have been the 2012 season, how did you adjust your game to account for potentially any limitations that may not have existed prior to that surgery? How did you compensate or do anything different?
Yeah, I had neck problems that of all things caused kind of nerve damage in my right arm and right hand. And if only I was amphibious, I could have started throwing it left-handed. It was too late for that. But maybe to use a baseball analogy, I couldn't throw the 100-mile-an-hour fastball anymore, but I could still work the edges of the plate, and you can still strike somebody out that way. So I think I learned that I could be flexible and adaptive, that you can play quarterback in a different way. I couldn't throw it as far or as hard, but could be very accurate on these shorter intermediate throws. And you can still move the chains down the field and kind of remain an effective quarterback. So in a strange way, I'm almost kind of glad I went through that injury and adversity, because I learned that I could adjust. You also had to find a new team to play for, and that's a whole new corporate culture, a new offensive system, new teammates, new coaches. The Broncos were extremely flexible and adaptive as well. They said, Peyton, you tell us the plays that you ran with the Colts. We'll run all those plays, but we'll also run some plays we think will be good for you that we like at this point in your career. We'll work together, kind of have a collaborative, hybrid offense. And we had immediate success. And not every team was that open and collaborative. So I think when you go through a change or a little bit of adversity, being flexible and adaptive is critical. Had I been hard-headed and stubborn and said, no, I don't want any of your plays, or I can't make this throw, I shouldn't play again, I probably wouldn't have played. But to be a part of another franchise for 4 years and be a part of a championship 10 years ago today, we were out in San Francisco playing in the Super Bowl. So in a strange way, like I said, kind of glad that I went through it, because I learned a lot about myself.
All right, I like this next question. We are on the heels of Phillip Rivers making a comeback. This is when we should all go, Peyton. What body part would keep you right now from making a return like Phillip Rivers did?
I couldn't count them all. I like guys who kind of honor their retirements, and so But Phillip did great. That was impressive, but by no means that'd be. People always used to say, "Boy, it'd be great to see if you and Eli had a race." I'm like, that'd be awful to watch. That'd be terrible. So it would be bad to watch me go out there and try to play. But yeah, Phillip, that was pretty impressive what he did.
All right, you've always had a reputation of establishing strong rapport with your receivers. What was your approach in connecting with them, and what do you think you may have done differently from other quarterbacks?
I wouldn't think anything differently than what most quarterbacks should be doing. I think you got to be a good listener as a quarterback or as a leader. You got to take their input, and I think also get to know them a little bit. Get to know the people that are following you, and maybe what drives them, what makes them tick, are probably going to be different, right? And the more you know about their background, the more of an effective communicator you can be. So I used to get to know my receivers, and I had receivers that liked to be verbally challenged. They responded to that right in front of the whole team. Others liked to be pulled off to the side, said, hey, I'm counting on you now. This is where the ball is going to be. We're not on the same page. We got to get some extra reps after practice. That player appreciated being pulled off to the side. So the more you know about the people that you're working with, I think the more you can communicate with them more effectively. Being a good listener can go a long way. We had a game against the Buffalo Bills one time, and on the second play of the game, my teammate, Emmanuel Sanders, comes to me and says, Peyton, this guy guarding me is playing so far off of me, we can throw short in front of him all game. Very next play is a run play. We break the huddle. I see that defender. I audible to a short pass. Emmanuel catches it, and he runs for 20 yards. The 20 yards was great. But the fact that I took his input and implemented it in real time into the game plan, he'd run through a wall for me at that point. And so I think that goes a long way, you know, in any type of leadership role of taking the input of the people that are working with you and using it. Let them know that you really are listening. So I think that goes a long way.
You've touched on some players that you did play with. Who were some of your favorites, and is it possible to have favorite players that you played against?
It's really hard to pick that I played with. My favorite players were the talented players that were also the most unselfish. They put the team over self. I played with a guy in Indianapolis named Edgerrin James. He's from Immokalee, Florida. I was from New Orleans, Louisiana. We couldn't have more different backgrounds growing up. But on Sundays at 1 o'clock Eastern, it doesn't matter, right? You're all trying to accomplish the same goal. But he took as much pride in his blocking and his ability to catch the ball, always knowing his blitz assignments just as much as he did his ability to run the ball. And if you have a good running back, as you know, David, the defense will bring an extra defender down there to stop him. And what does that do? That allows your receivers on the outside to have one-on-one coverage, right? He took pride in the fact that his presence was allowing our receivers to have great passing days. And maybe he wasn't getting the yards that he wanted, but his teammates were happy, and that made him happy. And that's a rare attitude. So I loved unselfish attitudes. Playing against, you know, I mean, I mentioned him earlier, Ray Lewis was the best defensive player I ever played against. He studied film like a quarterback, big, strong, fast, smart, instinctive. I always thought he knew kind of our plays, and so every time he blitzed, I always thought he kind of knew when the ball was going to be snapped, and so he'd kind of hit this running start. And when he'd hit me, he'd kind of drive me to the ground, and he kind of used me to help him get up and whisper in my ear, "I'll be back here in a couple minutes, punk," you know. Very friendly guy. When he retired, it was one of the greater days of my life. So, yeah, I don't miss that at all either.
No, is Ray responsible for your hardest hit, or was that somebody else?
Yeah, no, that would have been him for sure. And it's funny, he and I get along great now. The Pro Bowl was last night. It's changed a lot. It used to be in Hawaii. It was kind of like an incentive trip. You had a good year. They took you to Hawaii, this relaxing trip, and I was on the same team as Ray Lewis. And it was kind of a, you tackle football. It was a real game. But I was over there, man, I bought Ray Lewis's dinner. I bought him drinks, bought him golf clubs one year, kind of hoping he wouldn't hit me as hard come next October, but he never seemed to remember. So.
Peyton, many of our audience members today are in management positions, which means that they have to satisfy expectations of owners, stockholders, as well as customers, clients, and more. Can you talk to us about managing those expectations of those around you and those who depend on you?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, certainly as a football player, you have fans, you have media, you have talk radio or whatnot. I think as a player, what my advice to players is, are you doing exactly what you're being coached to do? Are you following his instructions? My advice would be the same in the business world. Are you totally clear about what your role is and what you should be doing? And if you're doing that, then everything outside of that it just has to be just white noise and really shouldn't factor in. Now, if you're not clear about your role and if you're not doing it to the best of your ability, giving your best effort, that's different. That's kind of on you. But I think as long as you're doing that at your highest effort and you're clear about what the role is, anything outside of what your coach or your leader is telling you to do shouldn't factor in, and you have to be able to block that out.
While you were always one of the more intense competitors, you also had a reputation of being respectful. What kept your emotions and, I guess more importantly, your behavior in check?
Yeah, I think my dad was always talking about having respect for the game, for the opponents, the referees, the fans. And then, I don't know, Eli taught me a lesson. When Eli got to New York, I used to read the newspaper after we won, but after we lost, I wouldn't read it. And Eli goes to New York, obviously this huge market, and he says, hey, I don't read it after a win or a loss. And that was a good advice because, you want to avoid this roller coaster of emotions, right? And just stay pretty even keel. So, and then on the field, to engage in trash talking, I think that would have been taken away from what I really should be doing, is over there talking to my teammates about how we're going to go score again. So you don't want to, get out of your sort of focus zone, if you will. I didn't always keep my composure. I think I lose it at times. I think if I lost it, I would try to make it right. I mean, we played a game against the Dolphins one time, and this referee that I knew, this guy reffed my games in college. I knew him. I talked to him before the game. He made the worst holding call I'd ever seen, and I absolutely let him have it. I lost my cool. I let him have it, and I felt so bad. We won the game. I tried to find him after the game. You know, those referees, they are sprinting off the field. And so I couldn't find him. So I called the NFL office to get his address because I wanted to write him an apology letter. And the NFL wouldn't give me his address because they thought I was going to go to his house and beat the guy up. They're like, nobody apologizes to referees. So I think it's important to try to stay even keel, not get too high or too low, and have the respect of the people that you're working with or competing against.
You touched on this earlier. You are officially in the content business with the creation of Omaha Productions. Tell us about your production company and how that came about.
Yeah, we're kind of in the content creation business, trying to create sort of positive, unifying content, kind of celebrates hard work and sense of community. I think there's kind of a need for that. We produce different shows that I'm in, but also ones that I'm not in, which I really enjoy. Like we do a show called Peyton's Places about the history of the NFL, which I am in, but we produce a show called McEnroe's Places, which is about tennis and the same thing, and I'm not in that. I'm kind of maybe the offensive coordinator in the press box that can kind of review it and watch the rough drafts. I never really have been a part of something that I didn't kind of physically have to sort of be the quarterback of, and I really have enjoyed that part of it, of offering your 2 cents of advice and maybe giving someone else a platform. Sue Bird does Sue's Places about the history of college basketball. I love giving her platform and still being a part of it. So that's been the best part of it, and it's kind of a new team that I'm on. And like I said, I miss being a part of a team. This is kind of another team for me in this second chapter, and I'm enjoying that part of it.
All right, let's talk about the Manning cast. Your Monday Night Football gig with Eli, I find it highly entertaining, especially when brothers are being brothers.
Right.
But it's changing the way we watch and consume sports. Talk to us about how that show came together, maybe some of your favorite moments from this season, and are you already kind of looking ahead to that dream guest for 2026?
Yeah, I started obviously during the pandemic. There are a lot of things being done remotely, as you know, including some broadcasting. And I had been retired from football for 5 years. Eli had just gotten out. But I've been approached by the traditional broadcasting side, by the networks, which, in the NFL, people don't realize it is really good on your family life. You leave 8 Saturdays, you're home on Sunday. Just 8 road games, 1 day of travel. Baseball, basketball, much worse. Broadcasting, there are no home games. So if you're doing it, and if you're going to do it right, like Collinsworth and John Madden did, you have to go to practice on Friday, watch the home team practice, visit with the visiting team on Saturday, and then call the game on Sunday or Monday, and then get home and start all over again. No home games. 22 weekends in a row, you're gone. So you're not going to go to your kids' flag football game and your daughter's volleyball games. And like I said, my dad was there for me. I wanted to be there for our kids. So that wasn't interesting to me. But I saw the remote thing. I said, now I could do that. I could get Eli. He's unemployed, and we could, that would be interesting. And so Eli thought ESPN was joking. He said, wait a minute, let me get this straight. You want to pay me to watch football with my brother from my house? He's like, I know I went to Ole Miss. I'm not that smart. It sounds like a pretty good idea. So that's how it came about. We just finished our 5th year. I mean, we're past the remote thing, and so it's become like a real thing. Eli and I try to remind ourselves that we're having fun watching the game, and the viewer is sitting on the couch with us or at the bar with us, and just watch a game. The game's important to me. I like defending the game. I'm a protector of the game, and to do it in a positive way, to work with Eli, who we see the game the same way. We can share in the preparation. We study just like we were playing, but I'll say, Eli, you take the Bengals, I'll take the Cowboys. We'll share notes, leave each other, emails or voicemails about the film that we watch, and that kind of helps. But I do it from my neighbor's garage in Denver, and don't have to travel to Cincinnati for 3 days and miss out on kids' activities. So and we have guests on that the number one criteria is they have to love football, and I like talking to people who like football as much as I do. And the guests, they can't come on there to promote their new book or movie or tequila that's going to lose money anyway, right? They have to genuinely love football. And what's been amazing is how many people in different walks of life are true football fans. I mean, we had President Bush this year, big Cowboys fan. Had President Obama 3 years ago, big Bears fan. Condoleezza Rice is a Broncos fan, can break down a cover 2 defense as well as I can. Snoop Dogg has been a youth football coach for years out in LA, had a huge impact on a number of young men, some that are playing in the NFL. And so 4 different backgrounds right there. We can kind of check those at the door and sit down and watch a football game together. So a little bit of a unifier. Now, the guests are on via Zoom. There's a little more smoke coming out of Snoop's Zoom than there is Condoleezza's, right? But we can wave that out, and here we go. So we're all set for season 6. I don't know how, but yeah, I enjoy doing it.
You know, whether it's hosting SNL and the ESPYs or doing a commercial, and I told you beforehand, my favorite is still your whole family walking through the ESPN studios and you doing that reverse back kick to Eli at the very end. But you've shown that humorous side. Any funny stories you want to share from SNL or commercials, and you receive, I imagine you receive some amusing feedback from time to time on those.
Yeah. Yeah, Saturday Night Live I hosted years ago. My wife Ashley and I went to the 50th year this past year, which was very cool, but it was back at the year we won the Super Bowl with the Colts, got to host it. And, you know, it's a lot like a game week, believe it or not. They bring you in on Monday and kind of put the game plan in. They write, put plays in, you do a couple of rehearsals, and then Saturday at 11:30 Eastern, it's a live show. There's a 7-second delay in case you go on a little political rant there. They'd have time to fix that. But I screwed up live a lot, so I was kind of okay for that. But I had an incredibly talented all-star cast the year with Sudeikis and Amy Poehler. And anyway, but this one skit people ask me about all the time. We did this sort of spoof skit for the United Way where I was hitting these kids in the head with footballs. And it lives on YouTube, unfortunately. And Andy Samberg wrote it. He said, look, Peyton, you're a charitable guy. That's why this is going to be funny, but you got to be all in. You got to whack these kids right in the face. And I kind of kept saying my mother's going to be so disappointed when she sees that, because the football, David, I'm telling you, was as light as a feather. I mean, it was a Nerf ball. They cut the Nerf out. It weighed nothing, but they put those sound effects where it looks like you were knocking these kids out. And we're doing it, and all of a sudden I realized all of the kids' parents were out there the whole time watching, and that made me uncomfortable because you know, the kids are 9, 10 years old, and the parents are watching. And I told Sandberg, I said, I don't think I can do it. I said, I'll go up to the edge. This feels slightly over the edge. I'm just not comfortable. And he said, no problem. We'll cancel it. And right then, I cannot make this up, one of the kids' parents ran out on the set and told Sandberg, I want him to hit my kid in the face. I said, I will knock your kid out, you know. So anyway, and so that was that. And then these commercials, yeah, certainly. I do this insurance commercial, you know, that has this jingle, and you know, the jingle sort of took a life of its own. That I go out to dinner and people wouldn't speak to me; they would jingle to me, and go up, ask, you know, the waiter or waitress come up to me and go, "What would you like to eat?" I'm like, "Let's not do that. Let's just talk like real human beings for a minute. I'll have the chicken." And then in football, it kind of crept into the locker room a little bit. I mentioned you film every game and every practice in the NFL. Every day, you're being graded and evaluated. So you make a mistake in practice the day before, you're going to watch it in front of the whole team the next day, and you have to answer for it. My last year in Denver, I'd thrown an interception in practice. We're watching the film. The coach said, Peyton, this is a greedy decision. Look at the running back. He's wide open. You're forcing the ball in the double coverage. You got to make better decisions in this. And I love being coached, and I'm writing it down. And right behind me, God rest his soul, my old teammate Demarius Thomas leans in my ear and he says, number 18 screwed it up. You know, so I might have used a different word, but so.
Peyton, as we wrap things up, I do want to ask you about giving back. You and your wife, Ashley, who obviously has ties to our area, y'all are philanthropic in so many ways. Let's start with the Payback Foundation and the recent scholarships and endowments you've started. Talk to us about that and why that's so important to you.
Yeah, you know, I mentioned kind of my heroes, my dad and Tony Dungy. When your heroes sort of show you the way, it's easy to follow their lead. My dad, to this day, you know, still kind of, I think, liked in New Orleans because of his community service there in New Orleans, not necessarily because he was a quarterback there. Tony Dungy used to always tell us, on your off day, Tuesday is your universal off day in the NFL, he said, you can come up in the morning and lift weights and watch film, then go out and make Indianapolis a better place to live. And so Ashley and I started the Payback Foundation my first year, and it's appropriately named sort of paying back to the communities that have been a part of our lives, right? That's Louisiana, Tennessee, Indiana, and Colorado. We give grants to programs that provide leadership growth opportunities to kids who don't have life easy, right? And there's lots of organizations that are supporting those kind of kids. There's more kids in those 4 areas that you could touch in a lifetime. If you help one, you can make a difference. And so the Payback Foundation has just been, it's hard to know if you're winning when it comes to philanthropy, right? In football, there's a very clear scoreboard. You know who's winning or losing, but I still get a lot of mail, and I get letters from teachers saying that one of their students is in one of our Payback Foundation programs, and the kid's behaving better, making better grades because he feels like somebody's looking out for him. I think I'd call that a touchdown sort of in philanthropy. So, and then real involved with the Children's Hospital in Indianapolis, actually bears my name. We have a big fundraiser next week. You talk about the power of teamwork now. Doctors and nurses working together to help a kid live and get healthy and help their parents feel more at ease. I kind of find myself competing to raise more money for that hospital every year to help these kids, help the hospital have the resources they need. And then the last organization that I'm involved with is called the Pat Summitt Foundation for Alzheimer's. We all know Pat Summitt. She was a great friend of mine, great mentor to me, and lost her battle way too early to Alzheimer's. So hosted several fundraising events for that foundation to keep her, I think, her greatest legacy alive, to help beat that terrible disease. So I know all of you are doing it. If you're not, take the time, figure out what you're passionate about, give your time, give your money, give your talent. In a perfect world, you give all 3. You can make such a difference, and it can make such a big difference on you as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, the only 5-time NFL MVP to walk our planet, Peyton Manning.
Thank you all very much. Thanks for having me.